Hello and welcome to a video about changing colors in a bauble. Specifically, I'm assuming that you are going to be doing this when knitting a gnome nose, but it is useful for many other types of baubles as well. The first thing you'll need to do is knit up to the stitch where you want to make the bauble. Now for me, you've probably heard me say this before, gnomes are snow creatures, so I tend to knit them as much white as possible. But let's say you want to introduce another color. So we've got our nice spring green in the hopes that winter will soon end. And so all I do is I drop the color that the main section of the knitting is worked on, and I pick up and join the new color, leaving a nice tail behind so that when it's time to deal with the ends, we can do that. So I'm going to then work the bauble instructions just as regular. So just letting that dangle off behind. It's a little awkward, so I like to pinch it against something. Depending on which hand you'd like to hold the yarn in, you would pinch it either with the right hand or the left hand. So we work our increases into the bauble. I'm going to do a 5-stitch bauble for this demonstration. So I'm knitting front and back, front and back, front and back, and now I'm going to knit front one more time to get the odd number of stitches. And now you can see that I have 5 stitches. I'm going to turn the work. Again, we're just pretending that we've always been using the green yarn, and we don't need to worry about the white yarn at all. So I'm purling on what will be the back side of the bauble. This first stitch will be very floppy because this yarn is not secured in any way. Don't worry about that. When we deal with that end, that will be dealt with. So picking up not the tail of the yarn as I just tried to do, but the working yarn, I'm going to knit. So we knit and purl each side. So we've purled, now we knit. Now we purl. Trying to make this as obvious as possible. What's going on? Then we turn the work one more time. We're going to knit all 5 stitches. And now we're going to do the, well, it's not quite a bind off, it's almost though, but we start with the 2nd stitch, hop it over the most tipward stitch, and we just repeat. 2nd stitch in from the tip over the most tipward, and we just keep hippity hopping these stitches over top. Now what will happen for most people is the bauble wants to go to the other side and it wants to invert. So just pop it out and even just pinch it a bit. Now the trick here is to not just keep knitting, which will be the temptation. So we need to cut this yarn. And now we're going to pick up the main yarn that we were using and knit the next stitch. And you always want to knit the next stitch after the bauble very snugly, no matter what color you have worked the bauble. So let's get this yarn out of the way. So I'm going to knit this very snugly because we want that fabric across the back to really just pull tight. And then keep holding snugly, get that next one knit. All right, and then we'll finish our row or round depending on what we're knitting. You can see that at the top of the bauble here, there are little blips of color that came from the very first color where we knit first front and back and everything. Whereas here, what might be considered the bottom of the bauble, it's all green. So if that really bothers you, you have 2 options. One is when you go to secure the end, take this and weave it in and cover those over. Or you can kind of reconceptualize your thing so that this actually turns out to be the top. So you need to knit whatever you're doing, and sort of from the bottom up rather than the top down, let's say. Baubles tend to want to open on one side and be more behaved on the other side. That is fairly typical. Again, if that bothers you, when it is time to weave in the ends from this 2-color bobble, or this alternate color contrast bobble, I guess we'll call it, then that is a chance to go in, and if you want to sort of secure that down, what that would look like would be this. So you would thread one end, you would go through the fabric, and right here where it wants to open up, simply grab the yarn on the side, just like sort of one part of the yarn there rather than a full stitch, and just go back down through, and that will just kind of lock it down in place. How are we going to deal with the ends? Well, you have a couple of options. If this is going to be a gnome, your option includes just sort of knotting these. Boy, this white yarn just really wants to take up all the visual attention today. There we go, get that out of the way. So I've knotted it once, we'll knot it a second time, and then you have an option of putting both of these onto a yarn needle, threading it through here and just clipping them there, or you can wait till the beard is on the body and then thread them onto the yarn needle, take them through the body as you would, let's say after you sew on the end, and to bring them through the body and clip. I hope that this helps you if you are looking to add a little contrast to your bobble. Happy knitting, and if you're gnoming, happy gnoming.